has added almost 660 acres of park space. And a popular facility in the city's 9th district is reopened again after some much-needed renovations. Cindy San Luis takes us to the Central Park Recreation Center.
1, 2, 3. We were closed down for about 2.5 months during the process where the entire gym floor was taken up, a brand new floor was put in, which is significantly better than the one that we had.
Local kids took to the newly renovated basketball court at Central Park Recreation Center at 1357 East 22nd Street.
They're having fun already, and it's a beautiful sight.
It feels better to your feet because now it has cushion on it, because the other one kind of felt hollow.
Parents are equally happy to see their kids back on the court. Several boys and girls basketball leagues call this court home. Other recreational groups use the space as well.
It's good for the kids. All the kids come here.
It is stage one of a project that is going to do so much for this facility and will make it so much better for you guys when you come to the center.
The gym looks fantastic. There's more renovations to come. This is a pretty old facility, so it needs to be upgraded.
Future improvement plans include new restrooms, repainting, new windows, and a playground area, which are scheduled to be completed by early May. I'm Cindy San Luis for LA This Week.
And in this week's list of things to do, the Alvin Ailey Dance Company returns to Los Angeles, the history of puppetry, and a photo exhibit focused on humanitarian efforts. The Darkroom Galleries presents the photography exhibit Developing Change, featuring nonprofit organizations using photography to accomplish humanitarian goals. The exhibit runs from Saturday, April 20th to Saturday, May 4th. Developing Change validates the power of photography and its ability to positively change lives by reflecting much more than an observed moment. These are some of the images from the exhibit. The organizations featured include the Afghan Box Camera Project from Afghanistan, Exposing Hope from San Francisco, and Photo Kids from Guatemala. Darkroom is located at 933 Chungking Road in Chinatown. For details, go to drkrm.com. The LA Public Library's LA in Focus free lecture series puts the spotlight on how the Turnabout Puppet Theater, located on La Cienega, headed by a trio of puppeteers who happen to be gay, impacted early gay culture and the course of American puppetry. The lecture takes place on Saturday, April 20th from 2 to 3:30 p.m. at the LA Central Library. Speaking will be historian J. Eric Linksweiler with special guests Tony Urbano, master puppeteer and former performer with Turnabout, and Alan Cook, founder and director of the International Puppetry Museum. The LA Central Library is located at 630 West 5th Street downtown. Go to lapl.org and click on the calendar section for details. A staple at the Music Center since 1998, the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater will return to Los Angeles as part of Gloria Kaufman Presents Dance at the Music Center's 10th season anniversary. An homage to traditional modern dance techniques blended with the new, the Ailey Company will perform 3 different programs of mixed repertory with classic Ailey works and contemporary masterworks of our time. You can catch a performance on Sunday, April 21st from 2 to 4:30 p.m., but you can find the complete schedule at musiccenter.org. The Music Center is located at 135 North Grand Avenue, downtown. And that's a look at some upcoming things to do. A tradition that began decades ago as a way to bless farm animals who worked the land has evolved into one that showers blessings on the region's beloved pets. It looks like an exotic pet adoption fair or an open-air zoo, but it's actually the annual Blessing of the Animals at the historic Overa Street downtown.
And 3!
And Overa Street is where every year, prior to Easter, animal lovers bring their pets to receive a splash of holy water and a blessing, this year from Archbishop Jose Gomez. And yes, there was even a llama.
Everybody's so happy with their animals, and you see all kinds of animals from a llama to a dog to a parrot to a snake. So you see a little bit of everything here.
I like to hang out with other animal lovers and I was hoping that my dog gets blessed, she won't be as naughty. She gets into the laundry bag and she gets into the trash and she pulls my slippers off my feet and hides them, and she's a joy, but she's very naughty.
The Blessing of the Animals has been held at Olvera Street since 1930 and celebrates the animal world for all that they provide to humanity.
They used to provide us our food, our help on the farmland, but now it's turned into both thanking the animals and to also bless our loved ones. I mean, they've become family now, and they provide us a lot of love and support.
It's very rare that I think that the church recognizes the animals and makes them a special part of everything, so I love it.
It's a day that's gone to the dogs, iguanas, and snakes, and it looks like their human companions couldn't be happier for it. It is believed the tradition traces back to Catholic Spain. That's going to do it for this edition. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ellen Chang. A reminder that you could catch us online at lacityview.org. You can also follow and like us on Facebook. We'll see you back here next week for more of LA This Week.
I'm Paul Krikorian. The DWP will soon begin an important project to complete replacement of one of our city's main sources of clean water. The project will begin on March 23rd and will last for about 5 weeks. I know how much this will affect our commute, but this project will give us safe and reliable water infrastructure for the next 100 years. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kevin from Chatsworth, offering you a taste of New Orleans since 1986. You're watching LA City View, Channel 35. Our city, our channel.
Good morning. If the members could please take their seats. We're going to do something a little different today. The first order of business today, and again today is the 16th of April, is we're going to acknowledge, if I could have it quiet please, what occurred yesterday in Boston. Yesterday, Monday is one of my district days. I spend every Monday and Thursday in the district, and I ran home to have a quick bite to eat. My wife told me to turn on the television, and I think that was at about 12:14 Los Angeles time, and I stayed glued to the television until 2 a.m. in the morning. Went to bed, woke up 3 hours later at 5 and turned the television back on. I don't know what these monsters believe that they're going to accomplish. But when they have horrific acts of violence like occurred yesterday, it only brings us closer as a nation. I just want to mention 3 quick things that moved me yesterday, and I cannot remove them from my mind. When the explosions began, a great number of brave police officers and firefighters and volunteers just like you and me, they ran to the blast. They didn't run away from it. I'm always and have always been proud to be an American, but whenever there's an incident like this, I think we show just what type of people we really are. The last time we had a moment like this in council, we talked about what happened in Newtown with the 26 primarily children that were massacred. The Boston Marathon thought it would be a very fitting grand gesture if they invited people from Newtown to Boston to view the marathon. For those of you that don't know, a marathon is 26.2 miles. Every mile of that race was dedicated to one of the victims from Newtown. They sat directly across the street from where the bomb blast went out. I think we ought to pray for them and their families, because in a short period of time, they have faced trauma twice. There was also 2 brothers that were there. The bomb exploded and each brother lost a leg. I think our prayers need to be for the over 150 that have been injured, the 3 that were killed. 1 was an 8-year-old boy who never did anything to anyone. Several dozen are in critical or serious condition. In fact, Mr. Lamonge, I'd like to task you with identifying the victims so that we as a city can adjourn in their memory. I would also ask that you poll every member of this council to see if there's some other kind of gesture that we can do as a city of Los Angeles to the people in Boston. With that said, I'd like everybody to please rise for a moment of silence. A moment of silence and support. Thank you. Madam Clerk, I do believe we have a quorum. Could you please call the roll?
Alarcon, Buscaino, Englander, Garcetti, Weezer, Carrasco, Corcoran, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Zine, Weston, 12 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. First order of business.
Approval of the minutes.
Englander moves. Correct seconds. Next.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Krikorian moves. Zine seconds.
Mr. President, today is Tuesday, and now would be the time for the flag salute.
Okay, if I could ask you to please stand again for our flag salute that will be led by one of our own LAPD officers, the first responders, Joe Buscaino.
Thank you, Mr. President. And as we recite our Pledge of Allegiance, let us remind them that freedom is not free. Let us remind ourselves that those who are protecting us abroad are fighting for this flag and fighting for our freedom. Together, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Buscaino. If we could go through the agenda. Madam Clerk, the first items.
Mr. President, before we begin, there are a few items to be continued. Items 2A and B, there's requests to continue that until April 30th.
Without objection.
And also to continue item 12 to April 23rd.
Without objection. Next set of items.
Items 1 and 2 are items for which notice for public hearing.
Okay, do we have cards?
Yes, there's cards on item 1.
Okay, let's hold item 1 and vote on item 2.
Item 2 has been continued.
Okay, item 2 is continued. So let's move to the next section.
Items 3 through 18 are items for which public hearings have been held.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Weezar.
Number 3 and 18 special, please.
3 and 18 for Mr. Weezar. Members, other specials. Mr. Koretz.
Item 13.
13 for Mr. Koretz. Members, other specials. Mr. Parks.
May I have number 10?
10 for Mr. Parks. Okay, let's prepare to vote on the remaining items. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Let's move along, please.
Items 19 through 29 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes required for consideration.
Okay, without objection, those items are now before us. Do we have cards?
Cards on items 22, 24, 27, 28, and 29.
Okay, we'll hold those items. Member specials? None. Let's prepare to vote. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay, item 30, you want to hold special for Mr. Alarcon? And let's move to the last section.
Items 31 and 32 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes required for consideration.
Okay, without objection, those items are before us. Do we have cards?
No cards.
Okay, specials members? Seeing none, let's prepare to vote. Let's open the roll. Whoa. Are we good to go? Now we're ready to go. Thank you. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay, that should bring us to presentations, correct?
Yes, Mr. President.
Then I'd like to call on Ms. Perry.
And as you do, Mr. President, 31 forthwith, please.
Without objection.
Thank you.
Marla, you come too. You? Come on. Yeah. Come on, Wendy. That's okay. You come too. And tell me if I miss anybody, okay? Come close so you can be on TV.
Oh, okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I am standing here with Marla Alvarez, Program Director for the Health Justice Program, Wendy Romalo, Blanca Marquez, Brenda Montes, Yasmin Milan, Angelina Villegas, Livia Masas, Nelida Maldonado, Maria Silva, Alejandra Altamirano, Maria Alvarez, Irma Avila. Did I miss anybody? I got everybody, yes? Okay, okay. I'm joined here by some outstanding community members who are working hard every day to make a difference in the lives of the children of our community. These are dedicated women and mothers who have come together to support the health and well-being of our community's children and their families, those families who live near Trinity Park in the 9th District. Trinity Park is located in one of the most densely populated neighborhoods in the city and with one of the highest concentration of children and young people under the age of 18. There have been many parks in our city who are constantly under threat of being closed due to budget cuts. Now, the Trinity Mothers for Action started in 2012 with a grant from the Best Start Metro Los Angeles with the goal of reestablishing program funding and rejuvenating Trinity Park. In conjunction with the Los Angeles Neighborhood Land Trust, the Conservation Corps, El Santo Niño, Recreation and Parks, these women have recently completed a safety assessment and have organized a day of children's programming at the park. With the nonprofit Jubilee Consortium as a partner, they have established a full slate of programming for the community, including fitness and ballet classes. Working together with the common goal of improving safety, they have shown that increased investment in our community is possible, even at a time of budgetary constraints. So I want to thank each one of these wonderful women standing with me for their action and for their contributions to the safety and well-being of the Trinity Park community. Without the dedication of these involved mothers, the park would not have the programming that it now enjoys. These mothers, and more importantly, these community advocates, are working hard to ensure that their children and the families have a park that has programs. So I'd also like to thank Wendy Romalo. Wendy, step forward, stop hiding. Come on up here. And to say thank you to her for working with and organizing and advocating on behalf of these mothers. She has helped them through the process and assisted them in working with other nonprofits and empower them all along the way. I'd also like to give a nod and a thanks to Recreation and Parks for working with the community, particularly in these very difficult budget times, and finding innovative ways to keep this park open and functioning. It takes all of us working in partnership to see successful efforts like this to completion. Now, if Wendy would just take a moment and say a few words on behalf of all the mothers here today, I'd like to welcome her to the microphone.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman. I appreciate this opportunity. These are outstanding community members, outstanding mothers who serve as a role model to me each day in my role as a mom to 2 young children. They have been a positive force in the community that has seen many, many budget cuts. They have borne their share of budget cuts in South Los Angeles in the Trinity community, and they remain positive and active. They've engaged nonprofits to come and join them and stand with them. with the priority of community health and safety at the forefront, and I just want us to recognize their efforts today. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilor Perry, if I may, I do want to say thank you to the moms and a las madres. Muchas gracias por los esfuerzos y el corazón, porque yo sé que hay mucho sacrificio para lograr lo que han logrado, y felicidades por todo lo que han hecho, y gracias al concejal Perry por lo que ha traído a cabo con la atención para este parque. Muy importante por los niños y más que nada para la vecindad. Thank you so much. Great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So we're going to go.
Okay. There are no other presentations. So, Madam Clerk, what's in front of us?
Item 1, call special for cards.
Okay. We do have Sean and John Walsh on item number 1. Please come forward.
Good morning. 10 ayes on this item. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Walsh.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. You can go there right now and just click right into J. Walsh Confidential. Number 1 here is the continued consideration of hearing protests relative to an Office of Finance report, a record against a taxpayer lien for unpaid taxes, and this is $22,000. We're in favor of this, but since Herb broke the rules, I'd like to say that the Boston Marathon is no excuse for Islamic terror, going against Islamic people and hysteria.
Sir.
Notice when I
There's nothing to do with the Boston Marathon. Sir, stay focused on that, and now you are disrupting the meeting. You are now disrupting the meeting. Okay, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Next item.
Mr. President, item 10, which was called special by Mr. Parks, is ready to be voted on.
Councilor Parks, we do have one speaker card. Like to...
No, I don't. No, I got my questions answered by the CAO.
Okay. We've already had public comment on this item, so we don't have to have public comment. Councilor Alarcon.
I believe we only have one public comment card, and
yes, you do.
If that's the case, I would request that we allow a gentleman to speak. He's been working on this issue quite a while.
If there's no objection, Mr. Jacob Miller.
Thank you very much for affording me this opportunity. My name is Jacob Miller. I'm an animal care technician for the City of Los Angeles Department of Animal Services. I'm here to ask you on behalf of all the staff represented by SEIU Local 721, the animals in our 6 excellent city shelters, and the animal-loving community at large, that you approve this item and place a great emphasis on having the mayor work for this as well. The 16 new animal care technicians will go a long way to providing even better service to the Los Angeles residents and their pets. It will also allow us to increase adoptions and decrease euthanasias. It brings us much closer to upholding our obligations to the taxpayers who voted in BondDef over a decade ago. Perhaps it also might be a way that we can bring back our New Hope coordinators and volunteer liaisons. Our department, because of the dedication of frontline, rank-and-file staff, have always been committed to giving this city its biggest bang for its buck, regardless of anything else that's been going on over the years. Once again, though, I would like to thank you for your consideration of this motion, and I please ask that you guys please vote this in and do your best to get the mayor to agree along with it. Thank you very much.
James Johnson.
Good morning, Council President, members of the council. I just simply wanted to thank the council for considering this, for the collaborative effort that brought us to this point. It was relatively quick. It's an example, frankly, of what can be done when we face challenges and everybody tries to work together. Here forward, I know the general manager will be having a number of conversations with us. One of the things that took place at a town hall meeting that the department had, I guess about a week or so ago, where on a Monday night, I guess about 125, 150 folks came. Tremendous energy, ideas from not only consumers, but also from the workers. There is so much opportunity here, and we need to take advantage of it, figure out ways to work together to make this department the best that it can be, because it can be. So with that, we thank you so much for your efforts, and have a good day.
Thank you. Mr. Zine.
Thank you, Mr. President. I attended that town hall meeting at the East Valley Shelter, and I thought it was very interesting, the participation from the folks of the community that turned out for that. And I remember the general manager of the department with her representatives that were there, the conversation that took place, and serving on the committee with our chair, Mr. Koretz. We need to make sure that we work with the community, work with the employees, and before we make some drastic changes, we have a discussion and we find out alternative courses before we do something as drastic as what was proposed. And I'm glad it's been rescinded. We're moving forward, hopefully, with the dollars to continue it. But it's only till the end of this fiscal year. We need to continue past the end of this fiscal year to make sure we have the resources to take care of those animals. And I think there's also a liability on the city. Once we have those animals in the shelter, then we have a responsibility to take care of them 24 hours a day, not just during the daytime hours. So I think the experience was a learning experience for the department's management. The fact is to work with labor, to work with the community, and it's all about the protection of the animals. But I was very impressed with the turnout of the public that attended that meeting at the East Valley Shelter, and I think there was a lot to be learned, and the folks were responsive and receptive and respectful. The fact is we're trying to do the right thing for the animals that are at the shelters, and I know that adoption is critical. A lot of concern for the adoption that goes forward to make sure these animals are safe. But I know as a member of the committee we'll continue to work with that endeavor. But I think the experience bringing management, the community, the workers together was beneficial in the end. And I think the resolution that we have that's being proposed is a positive outcome of that situation. Hoping in the future we can have discussion before it gets to that stage. So I want to acknowledge the General Manager who's here with her staff. We've all learned from this particular situation. We want the people to know we care about the animals, want to protect them. So congratulations. I think it's a fitting ending to this situation, and hopefully we'll pass this measure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zine. Mr. Koretz.
Yeah, I think this is a clear choice for us. When we look back from 2005 to the present, we have a 167% increase in the number of cages and animals that we take care of, and a 12% increase in personnel. So we are absolutely at the breaking point in terms of animal services and our shelters, and this allows us to get back on the right side of that line and actually be able to serve our animals appropriately. And we had some other more draconian choices. I think this wound up being an excellent compromise. And we also appreciate the Mayor's office working with us, and particularly for the effort to put this in next year's budget.
Thank you. Okay, let's prepare to vote on this item. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay, that's been approved. Forthwith. It's my understanding that Mr. Weezar, you'd like to take up items 3 and 18.
Yes, if we can, please.
So let's move to 3 and 18.
Do we have any public speakers, Mr. President?
I am checking. Not on 3. Public comment has already been held, so we've satisfied that.
We
so
could
go
do
right
this
ahead.
quick. Yeah.
Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. And this is coming from Bill Rosenthal's committee, where we had a good discussion on both these items. One item is to clean up some language on our bike infrastructure to make it easier and smoother for us to implement our bike lanes. And secondly is the bike sharing program that will start in downtown Westwood, Venice, and Hollywood. My district has a rich transit infrastructure, and in just over a year, we've added bike lanes on numerous downtown streets, Main, Spring, First, Los Angeles, and also in other parts of my district, such as Cesar Chavez and York, and we are working on one in Colorado Boulevard. Because downtown is the epicenter of Los Angeles transit and bicycle infrastructure, it makes sense for Bike Nation to roll out its first ever bike sharing program here in downtown LA. But like I mentioned, we are also working on Westwood, Venice, and Hollywood. It's going to be great when we eventually cover more areas of downtown LA, but this is a great way to continue and support our bikers in the city, and also to support and encourage others to use our bicycles throughout the area. So this item today is some cleanup language on our bicycle infrastructure, and also allows for bike kiosks and other things for the bike sharing program. I want to thank Bill Rosenthal, our chair for Transportation Committee, for moving this item through our committee and having us here today. I urge your support. Thank you.
Okay, now, because it's you,
That's right.
we're going to call on Bill, who has carte blanche to speak from anywhere on the horseshoe. I don't want anybody else to get the idea that that's the way we operate here. So I'd like to call on Mr. Rosendahl. Bill?
Yeah, and I'm standing here, of course, right next to Mr. Weezer, as we were both talking about this issue about bicycles. It's a no-brainer, folks. It's a great step in the right direction. We are to become a multimodal town, bicycling, walking, mass transit, automobiles, all of the above in a combination. And cycling is great, healthy for you, and we're doing a great job moving in that direction. So as Joe was just saying, great. Let's pass this and let's go forth with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Labange.
Thank you. I just have a friendly amendment that the department be instructed to work with neighborhood councils, neighborhood associations, and other groups in concerns, Chamber of Commerce, directly. Some changes are being made as rapidly as exciting as Mr. Rosendahl would like to see, but some community wants to make sure there's a shared experience. Anyone here from the department? You want to just sit right there, Michelle? Michelle Mallory, who was the only representative for bikes 15 years ago. How many years ago, Michelle? Now it's the champion of all this change. How many years with the city, Michelle?
19.
19 years, the one bike coordinator. How many staff now do you have for bikes?
We now have 8 engineering staff, 2 coordinator positions, and 2 part-time coordinators.
So 12 people, which is very good. Just a friendly amendment that you work directly with neighborhood associations. And also, I think you should work regionally to have the best success. Is look at the hub and spoke, no pun intended, theory. I know Mr. Rosendahl and his work in Venice, all what goes on there, and move around so you don't piecemeal it, make it a successful area as it goes throughout. Any comments?
Well, we have 2 items. So, item 3 is about the ordinance that allows DOT staff the authority to cite bicycle parking, bicycle kiosks, and the bike share kiosks, as well as bicycle corrals. And then item 18 is
Give you authority. What's that mean?
It means that DOT can determine where the locations are.
Well, I think that's a mistake. The council should have words, because you were going to put one on Vermont and Russell, and I was concerned about the safety of the crosswalk. Remember that, Michelle?
Yes, I do remember that.
So how do we handle that situation? Because if you have the authority members, this is important, because I think the department should work closely with our staff instead of getting way out in front. How would we handle this?
Well, I think we would handle it just as we did in this situation. We go to the council office and notify them of the request from the public and meet with them to let them know. As you noted on the Vermont locations, you had concerns with locations, so we have not installed that location. So
but do you agree with me on that location? I mean, I don't want to claim to be an expert, but I think I
am familiar with my district that I would want to share that. And you just brought that up when you mentioned that.
Well, DOT has the authority, certainly in the case of a new program or something that's not routine, we do notify the council offices and work with the council offices.
No, work with the council officer to notify them, because you're going to be more successful. And then take the suggestions. That's a location where LAPD often has people dressed up walking across the crosswalk, and people, the motorists. What are you doing about education for the motorists to teach them now there's a new partner in the street? It's called a bicycle.
Well, you may be familiar with the campaign that Metro has going right now. We hear it on the public airways, and it talks a lot about the rights of bicyclists to use the lane and to remember that bicyclists are a part of traffic as well. So we're working with our partners in Metro and others, as well as working at our school children's program.
And last question, the Bicycle Advisory Committee, when's the last time it met?
The first Tuesday of this month.
And does each council have a representative? And
Look at your time.
100%? 100%?
There are some vacancies currently. I have, off the top of my head, I have to recall which ones
let's get it up there, because this is a lot of good can happen, but also you get stumbled when you don't include everybody, especially on certain things that people have a familiarity a little better than an engineer who has it. Is that an okay friendly amendment, Mr. Rosendahl? Sure. Work with the council offices, council deputies, neighborhood associations, neighborhood councils, Chamber of Commerce. Sure. Other interested groups, and also the Los Angeles County Bike Coalition.
Mr. Zine.
Thank you. I just wanted to, and Mr. Labange added that, the neighborhood councils, the chambers of commerce, and also the businesses where they're going to be located, that it doesn't negatively impact those. So there's obviously not only the council office, but the folks are going to be immediately impacted by that. That the bigger outreach, the better it is, especially something like this. So you've got additional folks in there that hopefully make that recommendation. The neighborhood councils, I think, would be critical, and the chambers, obviously, the business community. But when it's going to be at a specific location, make sure that specific area, the businesses there, because I assume they're going to be in the business areas, it doesn't interfere with their activities in dealing with the consumers. So the bigger outreach, the better it is. Thank you.
Okay, let's vote on this item. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
I believe forthwith, I believe item 13 was held special by Mr. Koretz?
Yes.
Okay, we'll go to item 13.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just wanted to ask if staff could come up and answer a couple questions. I just wanted to clarify that we're agreeing to extend this term to September 2016 and the next one to 2018. Is that correct?
This is Randy Howard, Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. What we're asking for is these are already the existing terms, and so we're due to a settlement with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission from another party. We're just being asked to restate the existing terms. So we're not asking for an extension today, but it's a restatement of an existing term.
Okay, and what happens after that? Are we able to stop using these natural gas pipelines at any time after that? Or are we committed to a longer term?
The Kern River gas pipeline is an existing pipeline. It currently is the transportation method for the city's natural gas field in Pinedale, Wyoming. At this point, we're not contemplating terminating, but the agreements, the existing current agreements that are before you today do terminate in 2016, 2018.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. No other speakers on the queue. Let's prepare to vote on this item. Madam Clerk, open the roll. Close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay, now I'd like to move to items 22 and 24, even though we'll do them separately. They've been, item 22 has been called special by John Walsh and Juan Alcala. Come on, Dow House dude, I'm going to give you an extra few seconds to help you show me how to pronounce your last name. But if I could, because I want to be respectful to you, if I could get John Walsh to come forward, and then Juan, you're after Mr. Walsh. And then, Mr. Walsh, we're going to do item 24, so you may want to stay close to the front because you have a card on that as well.
No. John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. And as a teacher, break it into 3 syllables. Al-cal-a. 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 Al-cal-a.
I'm going to write that down.
I've taught over 1 million students as a substitute, so I know what I'm talking about. Anyway, this is item 24. Go to HollywoodHighlands.org, and you will click on to J. Walsh Confidential. As far as item 24 is concerned,
this is item 22.
We're on 2 right now.
22, excuse me. This is a street vacation. The street vacations often are just a reward, a gift of public property to a private owner. They don't give us streets. We give them streets. I know that because across the street from where I live, they set up a parking lot for the building. John Walsh, blogging right now with new tweets at HollywoodHighlands.org.
Thank you, and thanks to Mr. Walsh, I'd like to call up Juan Alcala.
Alcala, yeah. It's very close to Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda. You know, Alcala, Al-Qaeda. Okay. So we're talking about a vacation for a street. I think we should give all our streets a vacation. We should fix them all up and then bring a lot of bicycles so there's no cars. Oh, I'm only going to speak 1 minute. Give all the streets a vacation from cars and put a lot of bicycles out there. Cool, huh?
Okay, no speakers on the queue. Let's prepare to vote on this, Madam Clerk. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Mr. Parks.
22.
Forthwith on item 22. Now we'll go to item 24, which is called special by Mr. John Walsh.
It's minute 3. John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. This is, if you read it, Lopez Canyon landfill. Remember, they wanted to dump everything in the valley. The valley said no, and they've had some success in preventing Lopez Canyon from being a trash heap. And but I want to know. See, whenever they don't want to vote on El Proyecto del Barrio, including general operating expenses, but there's no operating expenses. This is we're going to do a blog on this. There's no general operating, there's no money here. Who is this agency, who is this organization, El Proyecto del Barrio, who are they involved with? How did they get a blank check? It may not sound important, but stay tuned for general public comment. And you owe us for the other day, HollywoodHighlands.org.
Okay, let's prepare to vote on this item, item 24. Madam Clerk, open the roll. Close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Next, Mr. Alarcon.
I just wanted to let everybody know El Proyecto del Barrio is an organization in the northeast San Fernando Valley that has been providing jobs and health services for over 40 years, and it's a highly respected organization and meets out services in the hardest to serve communities.
Thank you for that. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate. Oh, next item then. What's the next item?
Item 27, call special for cards.
Okay. #27, called special by John Walsh, and Juan Alcala. So if you guys, if you would please come forward. John Walsh and Juan Alcala.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. It rhymes with ooh la la. Remember ooh la la? Alcala. It's all in the inflection. Now, as far as this is concerned, you just gave $50,000 before to Lopez, to the Protection del Barrio for, I don't know, there's nothing here tells me what gave the $50,000. Here on this one, you're giving to someone named Gloria Lockhart to provide services. Well, you know, in my neighborhood, there are a lot of people on the street who provide services. This is not to exceed $24,000. How come she didn't get $50,000? This is the 15th district. You know, when you are giving $24,000 to somebody, maybe here you should tell us what they're going to do for $24,000 in a city where people murder one another over $1 or $2. HollywoodHighlands.org. Stay tuned for public comment.
Madam Clerk, the next speaker.
Yes, Juan Alcala. I'm only going to speak 1 minute. In the internet, they know me as the Dollhouse Dude, and yeah, you keep giving money to a lot of people, so why don't you give me some money so I can change the laws of real estate? I can do that. Give me a lot of money and
This
I will
is
give you a
nowhere
lot
close
of
to this
service.
item, Mr. President.
Mr. Alcala, get back to the subject.
Giving service, what does that mean? I don't know what it means. Giving service.
Thank you. Let's prepare to vote on this item. Let's open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Next item, Madam Clerk.
Item 28, call special for cards.
Item 28. I have two cards, John Walsh and Juan Alcala.
Again, John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org, and you can just click over there to J. Walsh Confidential. Look, this is another reward. It reinstates the award for 6 months. This is, it doesn't say $50,000. We have no idea whether these rewards have ever been made. We had rewards for Mr. Dorner. They turned out to be a fraud. No one has gotten any money. We've had no report. I'm asking Mr. Zine publicly, as an LAPD officer who wants to see people arrested and convicted for crime, murders, I'm asking him, all we're asking for is a report. How many rewards are out there? How many have been paid? No, we're not going to get it. And the LA Times doesn't give a damn. All they're interested in is making goo-goo eyes at Garcetti, because they're all three of them over there. The three ladies love them.
Stay on the subject. Mr. Alcala.
Well, he's right on one thing. Garcetti is a pretty boy.
Stay on the subject.
Oh. Anyway, yeah, we vote for the weirdest things due to the weirdest things. If we had a better society, nobody would be killing each other and offering rewards on each other. You're not going to solve the Boston Marathon thing. I don't know.
Speak to the reward.
Yeah, you're going to be offering a lot of rewards, but the way to solve it is to do business in a different way so that everybody has a little something. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Let's vote on this item. Let's open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Next item.
Item 29, call special for cards.
Okay, I have Mr. Walsh. Does he have time? Okay, and Mr. Juan Alcala on item 29. All right, no speakers on the queue. Let's open the roll. Close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay. Now that leaves us with item Mr. Labange.
I'd like to introduce from the Angelinas who brought this group down. These are family members of the Public Defender's Office. It's Bring Your Children to Work Day. Welcome to City Hall, the great representatives of the County of Los Angeles and the City Council. Thank you.
Mr. Alarcon, were you on the queue? Okay. This brings us to item 30. So now it's my understanding that we've had public comment on this item. I think that Mr. Alarcon, you might want to make a quick statement. Ms. Perry may want to make a quick statement, and then we should be able to vote on this one way or the other. So, Mr. Rosendahl, you pressed your button first.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. I just want to make a comment. I am for, obviously, permanent housing with supportive services as a key solution to everything we do when we really get down to the bottom line. I like Richard's emotion. That's why I'm seconding it. But I want to put the Venice group an opportunity to put in an application to be part of it. So the only thing I ask is, can we have the period remain open for groups to submit who want to submit? And it's very clear to me that the Venice Community Housing has a project. They want to extend the project. We're big on it from our 3rd Street group. And for us to do it, we either postpone it or just give me a chance to get the Venice Community Council to get their application in so that we can be part of that process going forward.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is now go to Mr. Alarcon, followed by Ms. Perry.
Terrific. Great.
Council members, first of all, my motion is unnecessary because the action before the council is to vote on Ms. Perry's amendment and then to vote on the larger issue of the NOFA. So I don't have a motion that's pending. Secondly, I should say, let me apologize to my colleagues who were surprised at my departure last Friday. And let me say that in 20 years, I've never broken a quorum, intentionally, that is. I do want to state that although it's unusual and that if it caused you any grief about it, I apologize. You know I'm very passionate about these issues, these kinds of issues. You've experienced my rants and raves before, but I do want to say that I apologize for that. However, I would only hope that you consider the matter on the substance of the issue, not on the question of whether Richard Alarcon left the meeting inappropriately or not. Appropriately or not, I should say. And the substance of the issue is very simple. The Housing Department recommended that we incorporate into the scoring factor a 5% consideration if developers are willing to consider establishing public restrooms, laundries, and storage facilities. It is not a requirement. It is an offer. It is an incentive to try and take care of a need that we have. That's the matter, pure and simple. Ms. Perry introduced an amendment to delete that provision. I believe it should remain, and I believe it is a fair need. Not only is it a key issue in the Levon case, but I believe it's simply a need throughout the city of Los Angeles, and we should not discourage, we should encourage them. Finally, I also recognize that the developers may have a property where it is not anywhere conducive to providing a public restroom or laundry or storage facility, and so they shouldn't be required to do it, and that is exactly what the Housing Department recommended. So that's the nut of it. I trust that you now know what the issue is, and I'll leave it to your judgment, but I would ask you to vote against Ms. Perry's amendment and to support the NOFA in general, as recommended by the Housing Department.
Thank you, Ms. Perry.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I want to begin by clarifying my amendment from last Friday, and I do support the $18 million allocation and support the development of permanent supportive housing in all parts of the city. This comes from the Jones case, which was before our City Council in 2007. Now, the proposed settlement was one that I opposed because it treated downtown Los Angeles different from the rest of the city. It proposed that we make special provisions for homeless people to camp on the streets in the downtown area of Skid Row, and went as far as to propose painting the sidewalks in a specific way to identify places where homeless people could camp down. Homelessness is a citywide problem, so I fought for a modification of the Jones settlement so that homeless people would be treated the same citywide, with the allowance for them to sleep on our sidewalks from 9 p.m. until 6 a.m. with restrictions. And we also agreed, as part of that settlement, to construct 1,200 units of supportive housing for people who are chronically homeless, and I was fully supportive of this aspect of the agreement, and I was having great success establishing new and rehabilitated housing for people who are homeless in my district, and wanted to develop as much resources as would be allowed given the time that we had. Now, we've learned a lot that these projects work and fit in communities, and that they offer amenities for surrounding communities when we listen to community interests. It's never easy. Just last week, my staff met with profound opposition to a supportive housing by a highly exceptional nonprofit housing developer in South Los Angeles. And the mantra is one that we have heard for decades. These people belong downtown. But homeless people live everywhere. Downtown Los Angeles does have a high concentration of homeless services, more than 10 western states combined, and that's true. And for decades it's been very easy for cities to dump people down here, but I think we have shown that housing and services can be built throughout our city. I should also note for all of you, as you well know, we get sued repeatedly for more homeless services and more exceptions to be made. Now, I support public facilities for storage. In fact, I worked with the Business Improvement District to establish the first of its kind in Skid Row, downtown Los Angeles. I also support laundromats and public toilets, and if you drive through Skid Row, you can see among several of them that are on the sidewalk in Skid Row, and I welcomed them, and I moved block grant money to provide storage facilities in Skid Row. But I don't believe these services should be built in housing that we provide for people who are chronically homeless, because it is such a challenge to build these projects in the first place. We have been successful. Downtown Women's Center, for example, a rehabilitation project, the New Genesis on Main Street. But what people ask for is neighborhood serving retail, coffee shops, things like that. I offered my amendment because I believed it was bad policy to offer incentive points to include the kind of homeless services, public toilets, storage facilities at our supportive housing projects, where formerly homeless people are being stabilized and supported. That doesn't mean that I don't support the establishment of these services as standalone or incorporated at an existing nonprofit operation. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund includes scoring boosts for a menu of items. There's a scoring boost if a project is built in a higher income community to deconcentrate this kind of housing. There is a scoring boost for projects built in close proximity to transit. This criteria makes sense, and these are both examples of scoring boosts that support good planning principles. The scoring boost that I recommended we remove on Friday had to do with the placement of public facilities, restrooms, laundry rooms within permanent supportive housing projects. This type of policy does not support smart development that can enhance communities. And I don't think it's fair to the people who live in this housing to have a population coming in and out of their homes. I don't know if you could imagine having a public storage facility on the first floor of your apartment complex if you lived in one. Permanent supportive housing is difficult to locate in communities throughout this city, and then putting these storage facilities, laundries, bathrooms, makes it a steeper hill to climb. Finally, there's no operations and maintenance funds proposed as part of this NOFA for public facilities. This means the upkeep and maintenance are uncertain and could become sources of blight. A lot of you may say that since this is optional to include public facilities and receive the boost, why bother removing it? And my answer is, we need for our NOFAs, or our Notice of funding availabilities to support good planning principles. So it's up to the council to make this policy. It's our opportunity to make sure that city funds are spent on developments that contribute to the betterment of our communities. So I ask for a yes vote on my amendment and to support the $18 million allocation.
Mr. Reyes.
Could I ask the staff they can come to the table, please? The housing staff here.
Housing staff, wake up.
Mercedes, they're asking that you come to the center table.
One of the questions I have has to do with the process. So we have $18 million, 136 units, possibly, that can come from leveraging our resources so that we can compete at the state level for these tax credits. Would that be accurate?
Yes.
So when we look at the context of this environment, we as council members will have the discretion, if I understand the process correctly, to assess every project that could be cited in our respective districts.
Yes.
So when we look at the design issue, the notion of compatibility, what fits where, the developer will need our letter of support if they're going to compete in a manner that reflects the elected official's position on that particular project.
Yes, as is always true, yes.
Okay, so by allowing a level of flexibility, because it is possible that in certain parts of the city, having the facilities that are right now being discussed could possibly fit depending on the unique nature of that particular location.
Yes.
But that won't be known until a proposal is put together.
Correct. They have to go through underwriting.
Okay. So those projects that are now in the pipeline, are these projects that have already been proposed? Are there projects that will allow us, will this process allow us to bring more projects to the table? I understand Councilman Rosendahl is asking for consideration. If there are other companies or entities or developers or organizations that want to be part of this, are they also in a place to be participating? I'm not advocating for one way or the other because I don't know where the process is at with the pipeline. I'd like to understand where you're at.
This particular proposal is not meant to service an existing pipeline. So it would be a completely open competition. When you're trying something new, then obviously the issues of design are very important. We faced something very similar when we started the Permanent Supportive Housing NOFA, where folks were very concerned because we were raising the stakes, now requiring bathrooms and kitchens and different things to do that. And what we ended up doing as a result of that process is win design awards around the country and start to show up on the cover of Dwell magazine because we tried something new. So this is meant to be creative, and it's a completely open process. However, it has the rules of competition that we have always had, which requires a development proposal to come in with the approval of the respective city council person.
So it is conceivable to have more security, more lights, all that could deter the type of negative impact that was described in terms of allowing for this added dimension to a facility.
Yes.
Do we have any proven sites that could demonstrate such performance?
We have never tried this before, although there are many ways in which design in Los Angeles has proven as a way to do many things, right? So even on the permanent supportive housing side, we have found a way to do strong services with design. Right. That one of the things that's important about this is that if we were to build new, that is the opportunity to design a separate entrance. You design security in, right? That's how you do that. We don't know what else people might propose. propose. I've seen a design that actually I was working on in Palm Springs when we were doing a campus both for housing for people with AIDS across the street from the Desert AIDS Project near a medical clinic that would also have a day center for street homeless. So there's a lot of things that you can do with design, and this is that opportunity to start fresh and try something we haven't done. But my feeling about this overall is, given the fiscal environment that we're in, we're going to have to do 3 things with a single dollar, and this is the attempt to try that.
Colleagues, I have a lot of faith in each one of us and how we view our respective districts. We understand the notion of compatibility. We understand the struggle to address quality of life. I would lean towards a policy that gives us that flexibility. I understand my colleagues' concerns with their specific issues, but this is a large city. Lincoln Heights is not Venice, it's not San Pedro, it's not Pacoima. Each area has distinct attributes, both physically, from a demographic point of view, and from the social pressures. The truth is, in my point of view, is that we have many more homeless in our residential neighborhoods since we've had this transformation in the downtown central core area of the city. And those dynamics are new for some. For some of us, it's pretty, how do I put this, it's been very trying to see the families, the seniors, the people living in tents around Alvera Street, under the bridges, along the river, I mean, on and on. So I would lean towards the flexibility of allowing us to have that discretion and come up with a design that addresses the concerns that have been expressed by my colleagues. And I would hope that the discretion could be allowed for us to have that particular moment to decide. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. Mr. Huizar, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. President. And we don't have to go over again the merits of these $18 million and the benefits it will provide to not only providing some more housing for those who need it, but also to allow the city to get out of a settlement that has been haunting us for some time in terms of complying with that settlement, the Jones settlement. And what's great about this as well is that we're taking a step further. We're moving our resources in a direction that provides a decentralization of services, and those services that have proven most successful, permanent supportive housing. On its face, great job, City of Los Angeles, for doing this. But I think we're focusing on a minor point here that isn't good for us to move in that direction if we were to move the bonus points, because this is also considered somewhat transitional. People move out there, but people need to transition from living in the streets to permanent supportive housing. And they're going to sometimes need to have that storage to move in. So we remove the bonus points, ladies and gentlemen. We are going counter to what these makes the permanent supportive housing units so successful. I was kind of discouraged when I heard that for the first time at the last meeting with Perry's motion. But Mr. Alarcon, I want to thank you, because your passion, your commitment to the poor, to those who need support, you did everything in your power to make sure we moved in the direction that makes sense for all of us. So thank you for what you brought up to all of our attention. This could have just slipped up by us and we wouldn't have paid attention to this amendment. But I think we should vote against Perry's motion, support what makes sense, what makes good policy, and move on, because this is a great thing for the City of Los Angeles when we move these $18 million in a direction that makes sense for those who need the support.
Mr. Englander.
I just got a couple questions. Number one, on Ms. Perry's motion, would that, if we approved that motion, would it delay in any time? Because I know that one of the issues that you brought up to me was time is of the essence to have some of the match available, and would that create a time issue?
Not voting is what's creating a time issue.
And then the second question that I have on a technicality, is there a way that, I do believe that council members do know their districts pretty well. Is there a way to exempt out, carve out, perhaps like Ms. Perry's did? I don't even know if she'd be supportive of that or not. We haven't had the conversation, but to carve out or exempt a particular district or opt out, or just include that type as an overlay to not allow that particular type of use on ground floor where she's talking about could be a problem?
You could, but in the way that Mr. Reyes raised, already in the NOFAs, historically, what we have in the Housing Department is a requirement that any deal that applies to the trust fund must have a letters of support from the City Council person so that we ensure that there's been some discussion. So simply not agreeing to give a letter to a development to come forward will take care of that.
Well, no, I'm curious, though. It would allow a development to come forward, but not with those particular technicalities that were presented. So that was my question, but I think that might have triggered another question by Mr. Krikorian. So I'll stop there and see where that goes.
Mr. Parks.
Thank you. I just had a couple of questions. Just on process, if somebody applies for this money and in that application they get the 5-point bonus and they then want to move forward on the process and they want to install the laundry and all that other, as part of the entitlements, could you prevent them once they won the award? Could you cause them to put something else there, or are you obligated once the award is given and they've gotten the 5 points, you appear you would have no other options? You wouldn't be able to go to developer 2, 3, and 4. So once they win, are you obligated?
Once we go through an open NOFA process, if you have won a competition on this open point system, I believe that it would be, I don't like to use words like this, but I don't think it would be lawful for me then to say, you've won based on this proposal, but now I don't want you to do that, I want you to do something else. In an open competition, if you win in an open system, you win in the open system. What is true, though, is that we're underwriting many things, not just those points. Right, so the deal as a whole has to work. The financing as a whole for the housing and everything else has to work. What we could do is work with them on design of those amenities having won. Okay. But simply saying you win the project on an open system, but now we don't want you to do what you won on. Everyone else who lost would have the opportunity to require that we redo the NOFA system, and that's what open competition.
So therefore, you lose your flexibility. If I understand the process, you lose your flexibility before you even ask for a support letter.
No, well, what it is, you don't have to apply for the points. And there are, right, so this is just a preference. You don't have to apply for them. And I would probably say that given underwriting and given cost of land and where you are, there are many issues that play into whether we come forward to you to support a deal or not. Many, many things. So I don't know how that will play out, but I wouldn't assume that just because you apply for those points that will be the only reason that you win, because we look at the
but if you have the larger package, you said you get 5%. Some of these deals are within percentage points.
Yes, they are. Some are.
Where does the letter from the council come into play? Is that in their application or after they get...
At the time of applying. If you do not have a letter from your council person, you are ineligible for the competition. It is an eligibility requirement. We put that in many years ago to ensure that there was community discussion, that city council people knew about it, and that you could help facilitate discussion within your own districts. So that is a hallmark of the competition. It has worked, I think, very, very well for us all as a city for many years, and we wouldn't be looking to change that.
The reverse of that is if you gave a letter for support and the person won it during that design, could you then mandate other things such as these facilities? Or is it set once you make...
It's set because...
Once you win.
It's set because they're coming forward with an entire proposal for underwriting to be scored against all the other all the other deals that come in.
Thank
you.
So
we look at them evenly.
Mr. Labange.
How many people you think are in the city who are pushing shopping carts and have challenges that this element is trying to address?
It's thousands.
Well, I know, but that 1,000, 2,000, 5,000?
I think
who would know?
Well, almost no one would know, because when we do the homeless count, they don't count whether they have a cart with them. They count them as homeless. But what I can...
Why wouldn't they do that?
It's just not part of the HUD system, doesn't require it, and so
I know, but why wouldn't you, as this Los Angeles representative, require? I mean, I know in Hollywood, when they do the homeless count, they go up into the hills, they go into the canyons, they look at this location here. Who would address these needs, or does anyone address these needs out there right now?
Well, I think that's part of why we continue to be open to lawsuits. I'll tell you honestly.
I know, but who out there now, I'm asking you?
Well, we have LASA, who works with folks to do outreach. We have many very great nonprofits that provide service.
Right.
And we have some storage. But it's clear that as a city, we are stepping up to deal with the reality of street homelessness. And the reality of street homelessness requires us to understand that they have human needs, storage, and others.
Right, but also, you did mention churches. I've seen a number of churches in my district that do specially outreach. Does your department work with them at all, or do you have any problems with that?
Well, actually, the housing department, as it is configured right now, does not have that jurisdiction. But this city council took a vote about 2 weeks ago that would now move part of the community development department that does human services to housing. So now we will.
So you're looking at that aspect. 'Cause I think that's real. I think everybody has right points there, but I'm going to stand with Ms. Perry on this in the sense here as we go forward. Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Krikorian.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to make sure I'm understanding some of the comments and questions that were raised and try to clarify. The public storage component that the current proposal is giving a preference for is not a storage component that applies to residents, right?
Correct.
It's for those who are not residents of the permanent supportive housing.
Correct.
Okay. So anyone who is a resident already, there is already going to be a storage component for residents. There's going to be bathroom facilities for residents and so on. The idea of this is to create an opportunity for those who remain homeless to store their things and use the bathrooms.
Correct.
Okay. So with regard to the letter of approval, or letter of support from the council member, if we have an open competition, if this 5% preference is rescinded, it would be within a council member's authority to be able to say, in my district, this is an important design priority that I expect to have in every permanent supportive housing project in my district. So if you want to get my support and be eligible for this competition, you need to include some public storage component, right? A council member could do that.
Yes, I would just, one caveat. Yes, that's always true. If, however, the competition, as it's designed, does not create the opportunity for that to be funded, what it does is on its face, the deal is a little bit more expensive because you're asking for something different, right? So if it isn't in the design of the competition, having those services could actually prejudice negatively that application, because in the design of the competition would not include extra funding for that amenity.
Right, but the converse is equally true.
That's right.
That if someone is not interested in having those sorts of facilities in their permanent supportive housing in their project, from that council members and that district's perspective, the kind of project that would not be as supported would have an economic advantage over those that would be more likely to be supported.
That could be true depending on the underwriting, but yes.
Okay. So yes. I just think to keep this matter as clean and simple as we can, to encourage us to move forward as quickly as we can in this $18 million important investment, critically important investment in the housing infrastructure of our city. I stand again in support of Ms. Perry's amendment, and I think that there are real needs out there for public storage and public bathroom facilities, but we can address those separately. Those I don't suggest that we should link that with this policy because of the risk that it poses to developers who may want to come in and who might get opposed by community members if those facilities are part of the proposal. There are very big differences from community to community, and in many parts of our city, I think there would be support for permanent supportive housing to address the homeless need in that community. But if the perception was that facility would also attract others who remain homeless to stay in the vicinity, I think that would result in opposition to otherwise good projects. And so for that reason, I stand in support of the proposed amendment.
Mr. Zine.
Thank you. Thank you. You have an apartment where you have the folks that are living there, part of this environment. You then have the storage and the restroom facility that are adjacent to that. What do we have to prevent a homeless encampment from establishing at that site? What safeguard do we have for the residents there in that community? And we've seen it happen in the downtown area. And my heart goes out to the homeless population, but what about the folks that live in that community? Say, now you're importing more problems into the community, good, bad, or indifferent. How do we separate that? How do we safeguard that neighborhood when you add this addition of the restroom and the storage adjacent to a structure?
My sense of how this works is, one, we have to accept that in our neighborhoods we already have homeless encampments that are outside of Skid Row. So those encampments already exist. The problems in those encampments are exacerbated in many ways by the lack of all of these services. A permanent supportive housing project, particularly one, and this is, I think, an important point here, is that these 136 units are targeted at the chronically homeless. Right? So the folks who already come in with the most severe problems, dual diagnoses, that kind of issue. So that means that in order to have a homeless project for chronically homeless, they are the most serviced enriched housing that we provide. So in some ways it makes sense to have a way for those that are already living in communities, they're already street homeless, to be attached to the housing project that provides the richest services available, because that is where you're going to do outreach, right? And that is our way to have the most highly successful opportunity to do street homeless outreach to the folks that are already living in our neighborhoods. So this isn't saying we want to provide bathrooms and facilities for the street homeless at any family affordable housing project. That's not what we're doing. We're saying we want to provide them on the units that are for the chronically homeless, right? So that is a big difference here in the design. So that means that when folks come forward with the deal, we're going to be taking a look and we'll be providing data. So what do we know about the homeless count? What do we know about where the street homeless are? And we're trying to target. This is only 136 units. It is a creative opportunity. The similar one, the same kind of jump you all took with me years ago when we did permanent supportive housing. We've won now awards all over the country for trying something new, and that's what we're trying to do here.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Perry?
Thank you very much. And thank you, Ms. Marquez, for your substantive education on this issue. Again, I said, and I'll repeat, that it was bad policy to offer incentive and points. It creates an unlevel playing field for nonprofit housing developers who just want to come in and get this housing, and that's hard enough. That is a steep enough hill to climb. And again, I point out just recently as last week, and the nonprofit housing developer has already been successful in putting a project into South Los Angeles, and yet there was opposition to it. It's always hard. I think that as council members, we can all work hard within our own respective districts to create opportunities for storage facilities. We all can participate in the Viacom-Deco contract for the automated public toilets, which are far better than these portable toilets. That was a disaster. But APTs are a success, and we should all work in a very aggressive manner to make sure that they're located in areas where they're needed the most. And so what I'm talking about is to provide a stable housing and living environment for people who've made the decision to come off of the street and recover their lives. And I'm also seeking a competitive process that is level so that individuals, nonprofits who want to come into an area and know they have an uphill climb no matter what will have a chance to maximize and leverage the dollars that they will get to build the maximum amount of amenities for the tenants who are on site. for people who've chosen to go through recovery and to bring a still transient population into housing development with people who have chosen to come in from the streets, and to combine that with people who are still in that transition period, I think is a bad idea. I do support the $18 million NOFA, but I just want this exempted out of that so that we can move forward, and I do want to vote on this today.
Ms. Perry, Ms. Perry, one, it would be me thanking you for what I've learned from you about homelessness.
Yeah.
I also want to say that as it relates to this particular form of money, I believe that in my tenure before with the Housing Department, if I received $10 million from the City Council in general fund for this, it would be a lot. The difference here is $18 million of general fund, money without restrictions, is what allows us to be the most creative, right? Usually I am coming to you all as a creative, like, pretzel, using the federal funds we have to do the most I can. But using general fund money gives us the most flexibility to succeed. So that is why it is with this particular proposal that the Housing Department has come forward to try something new. But I say that to you with complete respect for all the work that we've done together.
Got it.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Reyes, did you want to check on an amendment or a call, report back?
Our last discussion, I want to report back on where are the homeless. We talked about the overspill. There's been a lot of different encampments that are popping up in places that weren't there before. We'd like to get an assessment, some kind of a report back as to the number, or at least the proportion by which we're dealing with, because this is 136 units. We can't even say how many are homeless out there. But we should start defining a strategy on how to respond.
I completely agree.
Thank you.
Okay. No more speakers on the queue. Madam Clerk, walk me through what we're doing first. Are we first voting on Ms. Perry's amendment?
Yes, Mr. President.
And then we vote on the report from the committee.
Next would be Mr. Krikorian's motion to adopt the recommendations of the CR report.
Okay. All right. So Ms. Perry would be asking for an aye vote. This is on her amendment. Mr. Alarcon would be asking for a no vote. Okay. Let us open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
5 ayes, 8 noes.
Okay, now let's move on to the Krikorian amendment.
Excuse me, Mr. President, just for the record, Ms. Perry's motion has failed.
Okay. And what was, could you restate Mr. Krikorian's?
Mr. Krikorian's motion was to adopt the recommendations contained in the CEO report dated March 28, 2013.
Okay, can we get some clarification on that?
It's basically, it's the recommendations as printed in the agenda, but it was submitted without recommendation, so a motion was necessary in order to move those recommendations.
And it was submitted without recommendation because it was waived out of committee. So basically, he's suggesting that we approve the CAO's report that came to us without a recommendation from the committee. So with that said, let us vote on Mr. Krikorian's amendments. Madam Clerk, open the roll. Motion.
President, for clarification, there are no amendments. The amendment was just voted
I messed
upon.
that up.
This is the underlying motion on the policy as recommended by the department.
No, I just confused the council. Mr. Krikorian, thank you for clarifying that. Let's open the roll. Let's close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
All right. Now let's move to, I believe it'd be General Mr. Labange. Forthwith at the request of Mr. Labange. So can we go to general public comment now? There are no more actual items. And if I could ask Mr. Labange to make his way up here, I'd like to call on John Walsh, Juan Alcala, Donna Pearman. If you would please come forward.
Well, on the request of Mr. Welch, I can no longer call you stupid because you're smarter than us. Otherwise, you won't have the positions you have. But you really sound stupid when you talk about all these bathroom, no bathroom, bathroom, no bathroom. Hey, just build more alleys so the homeless can go peace and do their facilities in the alley. You know, are you stupid or what? The homeless need facilities. They need bathrooms. You have a city with no bathrooms. Unless you go and spend $20 at a restaurant, they're not going to let you use their bathroom. So quit acting dumb. Quit acting stupid, because you're not stupid. You're smart. But you're smart in the wrong way. If you change the real estate laws so nobody can go homeless for any reason, we would not even have these discussions. You wasted all our time discussing whether to have a toilet or not to have a toilet, or to have a place where to, hey, when I see you all out on the street because you go crazy with all your things, I would like to see where you're going to use the toilet, okay? You live in a homeless-making society, and you need to change the laws so nobody can go homeless for any reason. Read my book, The United World of Free and Clear. It's a fairy tale that makes sense. And you guys make absolutely no sense when you throw people out on the street and then you want to rehabilitate them. BS.
Thank you. Mr. Walsh.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. You can just icon over there to J. Walsh Confidential. Garcetti's not here. He canceled all his campaign. Even the LA Times had to admit the other day that he hasn't been to, he's been 10 out of 12 of the last meetings he's missed. Now it's 11 out of 13. You're saying nothing. Where is he? He's gaining money. Now, I was stopped, not by Herb, but I was stopped when I wanted to make a comment about the Boston Marathon massacre. And I want to say to the whole world, because the whole world listens to me here, you know they listen to me when I alerted the Innocence of Muslim movie. We are not anti-Muslim in this country. But when I try to stand up and say that, I was threatened with being arrested by the LA City Council. It's on the tape earlier this meeting. And I want to say right now to every Muslim in the world, LA is a good city. You are welcome here. But the politicians in this city are virulently anti-Muslim. Now, when I'm talking about, I wanted to say that a Fox News contributor, go to opposingviews.com, Eric Rush, calls for all Muslims to be killed for Boston Marathon explosion. It's right there. It's right there. And we say, we love you Muslims. We love your religion. Come to our country, live in peace, and terrorists will be dealt with. But I wanted you to see, and you can see the police coming up to me when I tried to say that before and threatening to arrest me because of Ed Reyes. And there are several anti-Islamic people. I wonder, Mr. Koretz, do you consider yourself anti-Islamic? I wonder. When's the last time you said anything pro-Islamic? And I want to say
speaker should speak to the council as a whole.
In Saudi Arabia. HollywoodHighlands.org. The world knows we love all Muslims.
All right.
We hate terror.
For the record, Mr. City Attorney, Mr. Wesson, all of us, in that fact, Mr. Reyes, Mr. Garcetti, and myself all had the center of the Southern California Islamic Center in the heart of the Wilshire area, and we're proud of all people and all faiths. But public comment allows people to say what they do. But I wanted the city attorney to hear that. Next speaker, please.
Okay. Of course, okay. And of course, you didn't know about number 9, the stupid gun buyback program. That shouldn't be sponsored by the city. It should be by private industries against the Second Amendment. Guns are needed to stop the monsters like in Boston Marathon. Gun buyback and gun control won't stop these travesties. Anyway, Dennis Zine for controller. Come on, folks, let's get him in. Derek Waleko for CD6. Cardenese sold 6. He's always shown he cares for his district. I feel the only choice for CD6, Derek Waleko. I still feel Derek Garcetti is the best choice for mayor, but we need Eric Garcetti in the chambers. And Wendy Gruhl, we need her in controller seat. Both are taking off for a campaign. Eric Garcetti, if I can make it, you can. It takes me at least 2 hours to get here, 2 to 3 hours to go home. I left at 10 a.m. and almost didn't make it. It's a real hardship. I was too tired to put my cards in right. I'm not able to eat here. It's a travesty to the disabled. You let Matt Dowd win with his cussing. He's a chauvinistic pig saying get rid of those women. We need to reopen Van Nuys video conferencing. Miriam couldn't make it. It's hard.
Donna, hold your time, Madam City Clerk. Hold your time. Donna, we cannot see your face when you have the card in front of you. Thank you very much. Okay, go ahead.
I need this to read it. It's a big travesty. Anyway, Boston Marathon taught us we are open to terrorist attack. 2 times violence to Connecticut shows we need to be able to arm ourselves in the best manner available. Yes, high-capacity guns. It shows us that terrorists don't follow laws. Babel and European Jews were disarmed, and look what happened. Enslavement to Babel, and 6 million Jews died in the death chambers. Never again, and never again will we give up our guns.
All right, thank you very much. Sean Murphy from North Hollywood, Toluca Lake area. Hi, Sean.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Chair. I'd like you to adjourn in memory of Heidi Nixon. She sung with the St. Charles Choir for years. She sang with me. She was an outstanding lady. She had a good voice. Her funeral will be Thursday morning at 10 a.m. I'm sure Lisa knew her, Heidi Nixon. Also, we need to keep our parks open. I heard today we're closing one park because of budget cuts. Give me a break.
Sean, go see Lisa at the ropes and tell her about Heidi Nixon. Next speaker will be Jacob Miller. Jacob Miller, followed by Delia Bishop. Jacob Miller here? No Jacob Miller. Delia Bishop, is that correct?
Della.
Della Bishop. Thank you, Della.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I'm a former docent. I'm volunteer for about...
Pull your mic down just a little bit.
I'm a former docent, and I volunteered to give tours of the city about 2 years ago. I'm 70 years old, and I'm here to seek help regarding the parking ticket I received for parking in an anti-grid zone on Washington between Crenshaw and La Brea. The ticket was $158, quite excessive and more than a ticket for texting while driving. That doesn't make sense. We know how dangerous that is. I contested the ticket because of a financial hardship and sign not being visible. It's my understanding that they sent me a reply, but I was homeless. I lost my home of 24 years through illegal foreclosure. When I did get a letter, the penalties, the ticket was $365, which is a total of $207 in penalty. And I think that is definitely unfair, excessive, and ranging in the area of just plain gouging. By the time I pay all these fees, it will cost me around $600 to register my car. So if my ticket is not reduced by April 28th, I will not be able to pay my registration. I will lose the privilege of driving my car. So I've been to all the things that I need to go to, the public violations. They claim I didn't. Anyway, my plea and prayer is that you council people, especially Perry and Garcetti, who was at my church, will have some sense of fairness and understanding that we the people are suffering. And I would like to be forgiven for the penalty of $207. I would be more than grateful and look forward to continue to serve City Hall as a volunteer. I have a lot more to say, but I'd like to get some kind of response.
All right, we're going to ask you to go to the ropes where the sergeant is. You see where Sean Murphy is? You could go right, go right behind the row there. Good, and someone will help you right over there in just a minute. General Jeff. Let's go, General Jeff. Get up there right now. Followed by Annie Gagan.
Good morning, City Council. Thank you, Councilmember Labange. Good morning, City Council. First, my name is General Jeff from Skid Row, and I would like to thank the City Council and the City of Los Angeles for creating the EDD, the Economic Development Department, which we hope will replace the help to replace the CRA, the Community Redevelopment Agency. We anticipate in Skid Row, that this will help allow the Skid Row nonprofits to return to their focus, their primary focus, which should be the best interest of the Skid Row tenants, and not pursue their new focus of pursuing additional revenue-generating streams, specifically the Skid Row landlords. For the record, the eastern side of Main Street, according to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, is in Skid Row, so between 3rd and 7th. Specifically, the New Genesis Hotel should not be allowed to have alcohol, because on that Main Street between 4th Street and 5th Street, between 90 to 95% of the businesses already serve alcohol, and I believe that the Skid Row landlord, the housing provider, should focus on the best interests of the tenants, many of which are in recovery, and those that are not in recovery should not have a problem just going down the street to fulfill their alcoholic needs. Thank you.
Thank you, General Jeff. Annie Gagan, please. Annie Gagan. Is this Annie Gagan?
Yes.
Okay.
This timer thing, is this correct?
No, just start speaking. When you start speaking.
Okay, good morning. Thank you again, Council Members Labange and Garcetti, for opposing Hollywood Millennium Projects. State CEQA Section 15064 CEQA guidelines define project as having a significant environmental impact when the project causes a substantial adverse change in significance of a historical resource. Millennium Project's 55-story skyscrapers with a requested unprecedented 6-to-1 FAR density will overwhelm the over 60 historically designated buildings and the Hollywood Commercial Entertainment Historic District. Millennium's draft EIR does not address the adverse changes in significance of the historic area or the negative impacts their projects will have, nor does it address the new view lines, views of the historical cultural monument number 857, the Capitol Records Building, and the iconic Hollywood sign, views that have always been available to the public since their inception. 150 feet is the historical height scale for the area. The W Hotel and Boulevard 62 have complied. Capitol Records is 12 to 14 stories. Millennium's projects are 55 stories. The projects will grossly overwhelm, they're out of proportion, and they'll overwhelm the area, minimizing the iconic historic landmark building, the Capitol Records Building, and the historic Hollywood Boulevard Commercial and Entertainment District, thereby ignoring and going against CEQA Section Guidelines 15064 for the state of California. We beg you, please do not approve these projects as proposed. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. Annie Marie Wharton. We got you right, Annie Marie.
Okay, good morning. Good morning, City Council. I'm Anne Marie Wharton, a.k.a. Rita of Sunland. Now, I'm quite aware that IBEW President Brian Darcy has undue influence over you all, as well as over our ongoing mayoral election. But up until last Wednesday evening, I didn't realize that Brian Darcy was running our neighborhood council meetings as well. On April 10th, a presentation was given at our Sunland Tujunga neighborhood council meeting by a Ms. Cynthia Strathman, a representative from one of Los Angeles's countless nonprofits, Repower LA. Repower LA has recently partnered with the DWP as well as with the union that represents the LA DWP, the IBEW. Their mission to get LA off of coal by taking $55 million of the LADWP ratepayers' money to create hundreds of green technician IBEW DPW union jobs. These technicians will be evaluating our individual energy usages and will no doubt be making the usual plastic window and low flush toilet recommendations. However, their real purpose is to grow Brian Darcy's IBEW Army, and the big payoff for Darcy will be tighter control of local elections. Now, when I voiced my concerns to Ms. Strathman, she became irate and unhinged.
Thank you very much. I want to talk now. I want to speak is Donald. Is it Slitos? Donald. I hope I could pronounce that right. Donald, thank you so much. Thank you, Annie.
Yes, Council Chambers, thank you very much. It's truly a pleasure to be here today. One with respect to the current president, Herb Wesson, who has served many years in hierarchical politics across the state of California. More importantly, council members who represent the greatest city in the world. You have opportunity to access and freedom. Why is today a great day? Because you all represent three things. You represent policy, you represent professionalism, and you represent political expediency. Most recently, I wrote about 5 letters over the last 2 years since I had been gone from California municipal politics. Councilman Buscaino recently put on a great program in his district for the Watts Corridor for underprivileged kids who had diabetes and who were sick. When there's no money, there's a way to make a way out of no way, and he found the money to go into the hood. 114th City Street School had never had an opportunity to ever have seen a council member in the last 2 council individuals that represent the 15th district. That is a travesty on 120th and Broadway. But let me tell you something about politics. You have a councilman in the 8th City Council District who handles the budgets. Why am I here today? Because there's an opportunity to take a city that is $200 million in debt. Now, either this audience, like Councilman Rosenthal, can return letters. He wrote me while I was gone, and he expressed an issue not only about his health, but about some of his concerns regarding policy and the inability to have individuals who make $180,000 a year and have 6-figure salaries and have freedom and access to money, but don't take the time when they don't want to converse about critical issues that impact their district. Why is that? I recently met with 2 very high-profile developers who received 6- and 7-figure deals from this city council, and they're going to be blowing up blighted brownstones from 6th and San Pedro all the way to 47th and Broadway, because they take the time to share thoughts when they don't agree. Why do they not agree? Because they can't understand why we're going to get a 13-2 vote. We're going to get a 13-2 vote here, you all, to take away a $200 million debt before we get a new mayor. That's going to get this city out of debt and allow you all to take this city to a better and a brighter day.
Thank you very much, Donald.
Thank you.
Joe, I want to say it correctly. Hervado? Joe, South Loma Avenue? All right, Joe.
Hi. I don't know. I was thinking about the public services for facilities for restroom and bathrooms, and I think that would be a good idea to put them in the hospital. Yeah, that's about it.
Thank you, Joe. Have a good afternoon. I want to talk to Brian Vargas. Thank you. Yes, Brian.
Yes, I wanted to make a clear statement. Now, coming from the principles of the United States, it's very simple. From the local level to the federal level, the United States is about to be in, shall we say, in a predicament. Now, in order for the American, shall I say, representatives and every member from the federal down to the local, there's specific actions which I've been promoting through each and one of your offices. The first step is to actually eradicate the speculators from diving into your deposits, which has been taking place and will continue to take place now that the FDIC with the Bank of England have in cahoots in order to do specifically what FDR destroyed with the Glass-Steagall law. If this is not done at some local level, you're dealing with mass genocide, and I say that because that's the truth. There will be no funding for anything. The budget cuts, which are taking place, that's directly coming from this administration. Anybody who denies that from this point on is regarded as treason, and whether they know it or not. So we are dealing with fascism. And make no mistake, those who are willing to create genocide against the American public and destroy the United States, it's from here on after considered as traitors. Now, coming from the standpoint of Alexander Hamilton, we, the United States, do not conduct ourselves in a manner in which we are conducting ourselves. It is treason. Glass-Steagall credit system, John F. Kennedy's million-producing job, NWAPA. And I will be talking to each and one of your offices.
All right, easy on the podium there, please. Last speaker for public comment today, George Abrams. George Abrams from the Beechwood Canyon neighborhood.
You have copies. Okay, I was speaking Millennium and TODs. In 2010, Sydney, Australia was faced with increased traffic congestion, air pollution, and escalating housing prices. The problem was the state government's metropolitan strategy of jamming high-rise residential buildings into suburban detached housing neighborhoods. It caused increased traffic, which meant greater traffic congestion. The additional stop-and-go traffic produced greater pollution on the roads because fuel consumption increased as traffic congestion intensified. The road system was not built for higher densities, and neither was other infrastructure such as sewers or the water mains. And in 2010, the Sunday Telegraph reported that air pollution in Sydney dramatically worsened, with 1 in 10 days officially failing air quality standards. In 2013, the Sydney Morning Herald reported that the Liberal national government in New South Wales said that what it had to do to correct the problem, quote, "The split between greenfield development and that within established urban areas was an issue in the lead-up to the 2011 election, when Premier Barry O'Farrell said that he would alter the mix in the previous scheme, which placed 70% within infill areas. Planning Minister Brad Hazzard said that the government would be prepared to look further afield than the city's growth standards for new housing if the industry or council wanted to develop an area that was convinced could be delivered at a reasonable price. We're trying to be less constrictive and restrictive, and what we're saying is that the marketplace should have far more to say in what the mix of housing is and where it should be. No one should be preoccupied by particular prescriptive formulas. What we need to do is provide housing where the community wants housing. We should note the leaders were supporters of densification. Their electorate was telling them that it was an issue. They had to acknowledge those policies were failing and that they had to step away from them."
Thank you very much. That concludes public comment at this time. Madam Clerk, what's before us?
Mr. President, there's a request to send item 9 forthwith.
Forthwith.
Council has motions for post and referral.
So ordered.
That clears the desk.
Okay, let's all rise for adjourning motions at this time. And Sergeants, we're going to have an announcement first from Mr. Buscaino.
Thank you, Mr. LaBonge. Save your day, colleagues, and everyone at City Hall here. The Joy Picus Child Development Center is going to hold a fundraiser next Wednesday at Pinkberry, Wednesday, April 24th at Little Tokyo, from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. So next Wednesday, please save the date and support the Joy Picus Child Development Center.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Public Works Committee. Public Works Committee.
Public Works Committee will be on the road tonight at Van Nuys City Hall, 6 p.m. It's going to be a special Public Works Committee meeting. Councilmember Englander is going to join us on our street bond proposal. So hoping we all see you there on the Valley. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We do adjourning motions right now. I'd like to call on Mr. Reyes at this time.
Thank you, Council President. It's with a heavy heart that I adjourn today's City Council meeting in the loving memory of Sal Castro. Sal worked at various inner city schools before landing a teaching job at Belmont High School. He was transferred to Lincoln High School in the Lincoln Heights community in my district. Sal Castro didn't wage war with weapons. He launched a movement with words, walkouts, and education. To quote Sal Castro, "The real fight is with a book under your arm." Salvador was a social studies teacher at Lincoln High School when he stood side by side with Latino students as they walked out of school to protest inequities in education for minorities in 1968. Their actions, along with other walkouts at Eastside High Schools, made Castro a trailblazer in the Chicano walkouts, or blowouts as they were dubbed. This educator, activist, hero, hermano, and inspiration died yesterday at the age of 79, peacefully of natural causes according to the family. Sal was part of a committee that made recommendations to the county about ways of improving education for Latino students. His meetings with Chicano Youth Leadership Conferences helped train Latino student activists and leaders. The Chicano blowouts at the high schools turned into clashes with students and police. Sal was arrested and charged with disrupting schools. The charges were later dropped. His activism was later documented in HBO film Walkout, directed by Edward James Olmos. Several years ago, in June 2010, I had the honor of celebrating Sal Castro's valor and contributions during a ribbon cutting for a new Los Angeles Unified Middle School named after him, the Salvador B. Castro Middle School, on the old Belmont High School campus in the Westlake community in my district. Sal Castro was quoted in the LA Times story as telling a reporter, "A lot of people tell me the movement is dead. It ain't dead, it's alive," right there in the eyes of those kids. The movement, the words, and inspiration of Sal Castro continue to live in our hearts today. I knew Sal back when I was going through high school myself. His son Jimmy was a classmate of mine. And it was wonderful to see a man balance his family with his call to fight for social justice. What's sad today is that Sal was still angry. He was still angry because at one time he said we were the invisible minority, but today he says we're the invisible majority. We look at lack of resources that currently our students suffer, all the state cutbacks, the lack of support, our parents to know how to teach their kids. Sal addressed all of that. So I'm hoping in this spirit we can continue fighting for our children and look for ways in which our state should be much more responsible for the education of our future of this great country.
Mr. Reyes, thank you. Mr. Huizar.
Mr. President, if I could co-present that with you, Mr. Reyes. I got to know Sal Castro when I was on the Board of Education, and certainly someone who brought to light, even in our day and age, the movement that started in the 1960s to bring more attention to the inequities in our educational system. You know, if you look at his life, someone whose family was repatriated to Mexico when, in fact, they were legally here in the United States and sent back to Mexico. He grows up in Mexico, spends some time there, and then comes back to the country that he calls his home and told not to speak the language that our very own country sent him to learn in another country. But yet, he moved forward, did well, went to college, and then, you know, put his own life on the line when he called to action the blowouts where Lincoln High School, Roosevelt High School, a number of high schools in the East Side walked out because they've had enough. They've had enough of teachers telling them not to speak their native language. They had enough of the inequities, the facilities that were falling down, no textbooks, and they walked out, and he put his life on the line, was arrested. Thankfully, those charges were dropped, and as Mr. Reyes said, there was an HBO movie that captured that movement at the time. But he never gave up, because even after that, he started his Chicano Youth Leadership Project, where he would take young students from throughout LUSD, take them out for a weekend, for a week, to a nice place out on the coast, and where they could learn more about their culture. He always stressed the importance of young people not forgetting where they came from and to learn your own culture. Learn that the Latino, Mexican, Central American, South American culture is beautiful and rich, but they weren't being reminded about that in their own schools, in the textbooks. And he taught these students to be proud of that, because a lot of this was the sometimes subtle racism that we see where people's cultures are not valued or taught. By not even mentioning a person's culture, and certainly that's going to tell people that your culture doesn't matter. So he made these students proud. And this happened till today. He kept doing this conference and taught them to encourage them to go on college. His big thing was to encourage more Latinos to go on to college. He saw the demographic changes and said, we're going to be the leaders of tomorrow. We have to be part of this leadership and encourage more people to go on to college. A great individual, never gave up on the struggle, put his own life on the line. When you talk to him, you would think you're still living in the 60s with the language that he used, but he was just a beautiful individual that gave his life to the movement. May he rest in peace.
Mr. Alarcon.
Yeah, I also want to add on to my colleagues' comments. Sal Castro was an inspiration. Even those of us in the San Fernando Valley were inspired by his actions. I was very young when he led the movement to walk out of the high school, but when I went to college, there was another walkout, and I volunteered along with my student colleagues to be the teachers for those kids who walked out of school to express their voice. The thing about Sal is he was a real people. He was real people. He did not try to put on airs. He wasn't running for anything. He wasn't trying to be a superintendent of schools. He wanted to be a teacher. And that's, there were many people I know who approached him to do other things, and he remained consistent in his beliefs that the most important challenge that we have is in the schools, and he wanted to be a part of it as a teacher. I have to say that he was the inspiration for what was called the Operation Chicano Teacher Program, which was established at Cal State Northridge that I participated in 1975 and 76, and a special grant that was funded by the Ford Foundation enabled that program based on the leadership of Dr. Rudy Acuna, who was a very good friend of Sal Castro's. But the bottom line was that at that time we had a tremendous shortage of teachers, and today most of the teachers in LA Unified are Latino. And I think Sal Castro, one of the credits we can give to Sal is that he inspired so many others to give back to their community by becoming teachers. And Lord knows we need that as much as anything else. So we want to I want to join in saluting Sal Castro, who was a good man who never lost his way.
It will be all members. I was pleased he lived in my district. I knew Sal. I got to coach his son Jimmy at Bellevue Park after my playing days, and later on at Marshall High School. He survived by his wife Charlotte. I would see him in the neighborhood in his never retirement years, but he would be riding his bike or he'd be running. He loved life. I remember the walkouts. I went to Marshall, and it was a big deal, and it was an earthquake, if you would, in education. And I've never seen a high school built as fast as New Wilson High School was built, because he shamed everybody. And poor old Wilson was just in a little junior high complex of bungalows over on Eastern Avenue. He was a giant of an individual, a warrior who really knew how to change a course. And he was Mulholland-like, if I could give that compliment to, we all know what that engineer did to bring water. Sal brought that to the people, where he changed Los Angeles Unified for all. So we're all standing in his memory, and I think we should have one adjourning motion, all signatures on it. Mr. Reyes, I know you have an additional one, but I did want to remember Jimmy and Gilbert, his sons, and his wife, Charlotte.
Yes.
Services are pending. Services are pending.
Thank you. Colleagues, I'd like to adjourn also in the memory of Oscar Cabrera, a three-sports star at Benjamin Franklin High School in Highland Park, and the first Mexican-American captain on UCLA's football squad. He died on Friday, April 12, due to complications, a rare type of cancerous tumor. He was 35 years old. Cabrera was widely considered the greatest athlete to ever take the field for the Franklin Panthers. He led the Panthers baseball squad to the City 3A championship in 1994. According to the LA Times, Cabrera drove in the winning run in the bottom of the fifth inning to help Franklin beat Huntington Park at Dodger Stadium. While he was a star on the diamond at Franklin, his greatest athletic accomplishments would come on the gridiron at UCLA. As a three-year starter, Cabrera anchored the offensive line that protected future NFL quarterback Cade McNown. The 1998 Bruins squad won the Pacific 10 title and went on to play in the Rose Bowl. Cabrera is survived by his wife Rebecca and their three sons, Oscar Jr., Edan Michael, and Liam Joseph. A date for the funeral has not yet been set. My understanding is that Oscar grew up in Highland Park, Cypress Park area, and colleagues, if you were to know the conditions of some of our youth in that part of our district, it's very challenging, so it's very admirable to see Oscar's accomplishments. Oscar Barrera will be laid to rest tomorrow, Wednesday, April 17th. Church services will be held from 5:30 to 8 p.m. at Holy Family Church, 1527 Fremont Avenue, South Pasadena. Funeral service will be held on Thursday, April 18th at Holy Family Catholic Church at 12. Following the Mass, Oscar Cabrera will be laid to rest at Mountain View Cemetery located at 2400 Fair Oaks Avenue in Altadena, California.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Many of you knew Nan Snyder. Nan Snyder has been one of these incredible community leaders fighting the expansion of LAX. It's called RSAC, and she's been one of the initial founders of that group. She died a little after midnight today, April the 16th. Funeral is pending. Hillside will probably be on Friday. But I want to read a couple of quotes from her husband that he gave me as I was coming into the council today. This is from Denny Snyder. Just after midnight last night, Nan's fight to overcome cancer ended. She spent her last 3 weeks hospitalized in massive pain. And Denny says, I can't ever imagine what life will be like without her. I just know that the hole in my heart is a vast cavern. We were married 42 wonderful years ago, and I'm so very thankful for them. But I'm upset, and I wish it was 400 years. Funeral arrangements have not been finalized. Don't send flowers is the first line. I want to make sure. And you know, he also said, and I quote, I'm comforted that she's finally out of pain, so great that it took 2 pain machines in tandem to simultaneously deliver enough morphine and methadone along with homeopathic medical marijuana extract drugs to allow her to die comfortably in her sleep. I want to thank so many wonderful people who have been my emotional support. And the last quote I'm going to read with great respect was what Denny said about Nan. Quote, Nan was a pioneer who fought to make this world a better place. She touched so many lives. Needless to say, her passion in the 18-year fight to fix LAX runs deep. In her final stupor under heavy medication, she professed her love for us, but also the disdain and frustration of elected officials who act in self-interest and not the special interest, and she didn't care pushing one unworkable plan after another. So she left us feisty, still in a fight. I saw her Saturday afternoon, late in the day. Things were looking rather grave, and from my perspective, she was one of the greatest people I've ever met, has had a huge inspiration on me, and may she rest in peace. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. Seconded by Mr. Zine.
Thank you.
On this side of the council, any other members on this side? Mr. Krikorian.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. It's with sadness that I ask that the Los Angeles City Council adjourn today in memory of John Krikorian, a longtime business and community leader and activist known to many in the Glendale, Burbank, and San Fernando Valley communities. John died on April 6th at the age of 80. For over 20 years, he was the publisher of Business Life magazine. He was born in Connecticut in 1932 to parents who were orphaned by the Armenian Genocide and served our country as a supply sergeant in the United States Army during the Korean War. He married his wife, Elsie, in 1956 and moved the entire family to Glendale in 1989. John Krikorian was really known for his life of service. His son, who many of you know, Glendale School Board member Greg Krikorian, said his father was always giving to everybody else. Every lesson he taught us, we carry on with us. It was always country and community first, and that was really borne out by the way John lived and served. He served on the Los Angeles County Small Business Commission and was very active supporter of the Glendale Adventist Medical Center as well as Pasadena Special Olympics. And it's perhaps ironic that he survived his last 2 years after having a heart attack in 2011 at the very public ceremony of the Glendale Fire Department when he was accepting his Service Above Self award for his community involvement. And at that ceremony, the Glendale Fire Department was able to save his life, and he was able to spend an additional 2 years with his family, and they were very, very grateful for that. He leaves behind his wife, Elsie, their 6 sons, 2 daughters, and 23 grandchildren. It was a life very well lived. He was a man admired and respected by many, and he will be missed.
May he rest in peace. Mr. Koretz.
Colleagues, last week I was greatly saddened to hear of the sudden, unexpected, and way too early in life passing of David Carlat, the political and land use consultant that some of you likely know, either personally or through his firm Political Consulting and Management. David was found by employees who went looking for him at his home, concerned by his absence. It was probable that he had suffered a heart attack because he'd been complaining of chest pains the day before. David was the son of a Warner Brothers contract actress and a cowboy, and he was raised on a Montana ranch and was the eldest of 4 sons. I knew David from back when he was one of the original consultants for the effort to create the city of West Hollywood, dating back to when West Hollywood cityhood was just a dream, and he advised the cityhood campaign through many of the crucial, formal, and political stages of incorporation. In the earliest days of the AIDS crisis, before practically anyone knew what it was, David was vigorously sounding the alarm and called for various county health steps to be taken to protect people, save lives, ensure treatment and care, and raise awareness about the epidemic. Healthcare remained one of his concerns, but he was involved in many diverse issues as a longtime and vigorous participant in LA and California politics. And although he and I often had differing views and philosophies on politics, I always knew him to be a good guy with a genuine insight into the life of our city. I'll miss him as much as a friend and a valued contributor to our civic affairs. He is survived by his brothers and had a memorial for him last night.
Thank you. Second on Mr. Rosendahl. Mr. Weezar.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I also ask that we adjourn today in memory of a dear friend, Johnny Godinez. Johnny was born July 25, 1960 in Boyle Heights to the parents Rudy and Hilda Godinez. Sadly, he passed away in his sleep on April 13th. Johnny lived and worked in Boyle Heights as a gang intervention worker for Soledad Enrichment Action, also known as SEA. Through his work, Johnny was able to touch the lives of countless families. If you ever met Johnny, all you ever heard him talk about was improving the community of Boyle Heights and making the streets safer from gang violence. He's a former gang member and knew the streets well, and oftentimes kept many of the gang warfare from exploding into something even larger because he knew how to talk to the gang members. To me and many of my colleagues, he was known as the man who always smiled and cared about his community. To his family, he was the man who could fix anything with duct tape, the man who always had candy in his pocket, the man who lived and breathed Boyle Heights. He loved his work in Boyle Heights so much that his family would sometimes have to tell him to stop talking about his work. Johnny would go on and on about all the lives being changed through the gang intervention, about all the troubled boys he helped turn into successful men who chose to drop weapons and pick up pens, and about all the mothers who experienced the joy of seeing their children succeed and live happy and productive lives. Behind this unwavering commitment to his work was a knowledge of the opposite effect of seeing mothers losing children to unnecessary, senseless violence. Johnny just didn't try and change that. He did change that. He did the good work and fought the good fight. Johnny was a man of great faith, and I have no doubt he is in heaven watching those he helped with a smile on his face. Johnny leaves behind 5 siblings, Barbara, Vincent, Bobby, Rudy, and Edward. And I often told him that I was trying to catch up to him on his children. He had 9 children: Melissa, Marlene, Johnny, George, James, Gina, Edward, Mariah, and Lenaya, and 5 grandchildren: Matt, Joseph, Aiden, Reese, and Javier. Funeral arrangements are pending, and I met with him just last week in my office hours, and he was talking about a new program he wanted to start where he brought together families of kids who are trying to leave the gang life, and how the family would be the structure that keeps them attached to something of value away from the gangs. And we were talking about how we could support that program. A former gang member that left the gang life and put his life into supporting other young people. And we've seen a lot of the crime has dropped significantly, and it's people like Johnny who has made a difference, and especially places like Bow Heights where they go there a lot of times right after the crime has occurred, and they lessen from further crime going on. So he's a great individual, happy individual, I and the rest of Bow Heights, and we will all miss him deeply.
Thank you very much, Mr. Weezer. Mr. Buscaino.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Colleagues, today I'd like to adjourn in memory of a friend of the family, Angelo Castagnola, who was born in San Pedro on November 17th, 1926, and passed away on April 8th. He leaves his beloved wife of 63 years, Carmela, his sons Augie, Bob, and Anthony, 6 grandchildren and great-grandchildren, his siblings Nello, Rosemarie, Bernadette Trainee, and sisters-in-law Lucille Castagnola, Felina Scaglamillo, and Anna Taub, as well as many nieces, nephews, and cousins. He was preceded in death by his parents, Agostino and Angela, brothers George and Augie, and sister Angela. In lieu of flowers, donations may be made to Mary Star of the Sea High School. A funeral mass was offered on Saturday, April 13th at Mary Star of the Sea Church. Angelo Castagnola, may he rest in peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes our adjourning motions. Let's remember the victims of Boston. Tomorrow, President Wesson will adjourn on behalf of all of us for those victims. Go on, serve the city well. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.